Hello, welcome to the channel. Hope you're all well. So this is another briefing of the absurd here in the UK. So last week I made a video about some of the crazy things that are going on. Well, let's just start off with who once was the man who was formerly known as Prince Andrew, who is now known as Andrew of Mountbatten, or God knows whatever he's called now. I don't have to be respectful anymore, do I? Because he's not a prince. Let's put it that way. In fact, I didn't need to be respectful in the first place. But apparently now he's going to be questioned, or wants to be, or the American politicians, they've been writing very strongly worded letters to him, and they want to question him, and lots of people want to question him over the Epstein thing. I mean, God knows where this is going. Obviously, this has got legs and legs and legs. Who knows what's going to happen? But obviously, he's been defrocked or dethroned or everything by the king. He's he's all his titles have been taken away from him. Obviously, they've just had enough of this, so they're just trying to, you could say, well, has this been a cover-up the whole time by the royal family in protecting him? Possibly. I mean, who knows, really, at this stage. But, there's no smoke without fire, surely. I mean, all this stuff, that interview that he gave a couple of years ago now, he tripped himself up. All the evidence is stacking against him. And you think, surely, I mean, this has got to be the scandal of the century, right? And if anything is ever done about it, but unbelievable. And the Democrats in the US Congress ask Andrew to appear for questioning over the Epstein links. I mean, it's just... this story will not die. This will just keep on going. The woman who claimed to be Madeleine McCann, the lost daughter of the McCanns, of course, in Portugal many years ago, she's been found guilty. Well, there we go. Found guilty of harassing the family. Personally, I think you should be guilty of a lot more than that, for claiming to be somebody that you're not and then just completely duping. This is fraud in the extreme. This is, I don't know what it is. It's just horrible thing to do. I mean, obviously, I assume she's mentally ill as well, but freaking hell. Let's have a look at this other one. Last week, or the week before, there was a prisoner that was released from prison who shouldn't have been released, and they eventually caught him, right? Here's the crazy thing. He was trying to give himself up. He was trying to hand himself in, and to police, and the police just said, no, just go away. I mean, I don't know if that's true or not. Well, there's another guy who's just been arrested here, an Algerian. He's an Algerian sex offender, and he was also mistakenly released from Wandsworth. This is just insane. It's just insanity. You got people being released when they shouldn't be released. Now, thankfully, they're rearrested. But it's reported here that he was being very abusive and all this sort of stuff. And it goes on and on of, what's going on. I don't know who to blame here. You don't know who to blame here. Is it the prison service? Is it some kind of political interference here that's causing issues? I mean, who the hell knows at this stage? But if one wasn't bad enough, you've got, and apparently this is not even in isolation, these two cases. Apparently there are a lot more of them. You wonder how many times this happens. How often does this happen? People are released when they shouldn't be released. And this guy is claiming that, no, it's not me, you mistaken identity and all this sort of stuff. And he's just, I don't know. It just seems to be the absurd of the absurd. I do wonder, especially after recent events, if the media are really going to change their tune in terms of how they're reporting, but also how they're treating the politicians who just seem to not want to call this what it is. Calling this situation as bad as it is, and a lot of politicians just don't seem to want to do it. They want to deflect from what's actually going on. I mean, give us a politician that actually speaks the truth. Give us a politician that actually wants us to know what is going on in the world. And as members of the public, surely we need to be ready and prepared for what's out there, ready to face the world, as it were. And you don't want to be facing a world that's, full of smoke and mirrors. And that's what it seems to be. There seems to be, there is a level of absurdity in society and incompetence. That's always going to be there, right? That's always going to be there, whether it's in politics, whether it's in the media, whether it's in business, whatever. There's always going to be a level of absurdity and incompetence. But at the same time, sometimes it takes it to an absolute extreme, and we seem to be going through this period of the last few years where it just seems to have got worse and worse and worse. And, this whole immigration thing, or illegal immigration thing, they still haven't got that under control, and they still haven't convinced the public of they're getting this under control. There are still lots of highlighted cases of criminality happening week in, week out. We're still seeing inner city violence and knife crime, and that's still ongoing. We're still seeing underfunding of the police. The police, in some regards, being helpless and hiding behind red tape as well. There seems to be some very concerning allegations or rumours about certain police forces that are not willing to even investigate certain crimes, and when they're known to be there. And there always seems to be this reluctance by either media or certainly by politicians just to say it as it is. And I just wonder when this is absurdity, when this will ever end. Will it ever end? I don't know. You tell me. Will it ever end? I mean, after the Cambridgeshire, the Huntingdon knife attack by the guy, he went in there, stabbed lots of people on the train, people running for their lives. I mean, what a scary, scary situation to be in. I was reading some articles and also watching some footage of some people saying, well, look, at what stage are we enabled to defend ourselves? At what point? Because this is just happening more and more and more, and people are going to be more fearful, right? So at what point are we going to have to? And you could say at all levels, from people working in shops, in their daily lives. Anybody could do something, and you could be attacked, right? In the emergency services, you could be attacked at any point. The police started wearing stab vests many years ago. There's been calls for other members of other emergency services and essential services to be wearing stab vests as well, because you just don't know what's going into what people are going to do these days. Knife crime, theft, criminality. You got teenagers, some teenagers. It's easy to label teenagers, but teenagers in certain situations that seem to just commit crimes, and nobody seems to do anything. You can't do anything to children, teenagers anymore in terms of adults. So you rely on the police to do something, and they're seemingly helpless to be able to do things. Or that's the impression. I'm sure they're trying, but there are lots of crimes that they don't respond to, they won't respond to. So you're left to your own devices, and you think, at what point, what can you do to protect yourself? What can you do? The answer is, I do not know. I do not know. If somebody's coming onto a train and suddenly starting to attack you with a knife, what are you going to do? You can only defend yourself with your fists. That's a losing battle. Most people, it's going to be very, very hard. I don't know. I don't know what the situation is. Nobody seems to want to address this. Nobody seems to want to talk about this. That knife crime and things are happening to people in society, and horrible crimes are being committed. And there's an underfunding of the police, or there's a reluctance to go to certain crimes, or there's a reluctance to just call people out, regardless of what race they are, what religion they are, what background they are, where they've come from. Well, it's just be factual about what is going on. And you wonder what the people, the wool is being pulled over the eyes of the public sometimes. And the media, I don't think, helps. The mainstream media doesn't help a lot of the time, because they don't want to report this, or they want to report it, but they won't say it as it is. They won't call it as it is. And the politicians are just even worse. I mean, you take the likes of, the Labour Party are under a lot of pressure right now, and the politicians are under a lot of pressure. But some of them are just, the Conservatives know better, and Reform is just no better. All politicians, they're all the same. They say one thing and they fail to deliver anything, and they're only in it for to line their own pockets. I'm sure, allegedly, right? You have to say that, right? And it's very interesting that politicians and the law enforcement, in some cases, seem to be only wanting to go after easy targets. The easy targets being, over the last couple of years, breaking of the Communications Act, right? And you think, well, or speeding fines and things like that, and you think, well, what about when people really need you? The public really need the police. They really need the politicians on their side to defend them, because that's what they do. You're public servants, so you should be there to assist the public, to serve the public, and you don't do it. That's almost like the ultimate act of betrayal. So if you're not going to protect the people, then at some point the people are going to protect themselves. And unfortunately, you kind of get this feeling that there's more and more people out there, and the problem with people protecting themselves, in that taking ownership of their own, their own protection and everything, in any way you want to consider it, is that mistakes are going to be made. People are going to do things that they really shouldn't be doing. It will get out of control. So, but it only get out of control because you failed the public in the first place. And these absurdities and these incompetencies just keep on going on, and they're always remain just bubbling beneath the surface, and these concerns are not addressed. And if the politicians are there, they should be held accountable. And you got the Mayor of London, Sadiq Khan, which, I'm not from London, so he doesn't have any impact on my life whatsoever. I live just outside London, so it doesn't have no impact on life. But the people within London, you've got to be looking at this mayor and going, he doesn't serve us, he doesn't serve me. And he's, if he's in an inquiry and he's being asked direct questions and he's pretending that he doesn't understand the direct question, and this is about grooming gangs and rape gangs and things like that. Go online, you'll see the clip. I said, what are you doing? Where the police, Metropolitan Police, are kind of shying away from even talking about this sort of stuff. And then they kind of realise, no, actually, there are thousands of ongoing cases here. And you're like, this is absurd. Why aren't you addressing this? Why are people so concerned about offending people? Nobody's going to be offended if you're just talking about criminality. Criminals are not a protected area of society. People are protected areas. People should be protected in society. You should be respectful. I'm certainly respectful for different, elements of society. But if those people within any group, within any society, are not respectful of others and they commit crimes, then they should be held accountable. And everybody should be able to say that and not be labelled something just because they want to raise a concern. This has been going on for about 5 or 6 years, maybe before COVID. It seemed to be started up. Then COVID just seemed to ramp it up. And this inability to be able to do something, or you're being censored, or you have to self-censor yourself just in case something were to happen. It just seems absurd. And more people seem to want to talk about it, but we're in the corridors of power. They seem to be very reluctant to do anything about it, or to really hold up their hands and say, look, we we got this wrong. We've been getting this wrong for a long, long time, right across the parties. And we're in, let's say the Labour Party, now we're in power. Yeah, the police forces, wherever, all over the country, the businesses. Yeah, look, we've got this wrong. We need to sort this out. And regardless of what we're talking about, it could be so many different things. Just a bit of honesty and just say, look, we got this wrong. We need to do this. We need to change this, And I've always said this, the only people who ever have to be concerned about this, if the process and the system is correct, are people who are abusing the system, who are doing things wrong in society. Because law-abiding people, normal people, don't have to be concerned about anything. But then, do you believe what you're being told? Do you believe what's happening in the corridors of power? That's the problem. They're losing the respect. They're losing the faith that people once had in governments, in authorities, in the police, whatever, business, the future. People are losing faith in that. And it's more severe in certain areas than in other areas. And it's more severe in certain age groups than in other age groups. And they continue to fail to address this. And this is absurdity. And whilst these absurdities go on, guess what happens? Tragedies continue to occur. And they don't want to talk about it. And they don't want to address it. And they don't want to hold their hands up and say, we need to do something. This has been wrong. It's just a crazy, crazy world that we seem to be living in. When you got podcasters on the other side of the world, like Joe Rogan and his mates, talking about us as a country and calling it out. Now, he doesn't always get it all right. And commentators from other parts of the world talking about us. Well, hold on a minute. You don't live here. You're just picking out the highlights, right? Or the really bad, because there are lots of good things that go on in this country. And I'm proud to live in this country. But if you've got people from the other side of the world calling us out, then you've got to be thinking, do you know what? If they can see it, and we can see it, or more and more people can see it here, what's going on? What's going on? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. The absurdity of the absurd just keeps on coming up. Check out the daily news feeds. If you want to be depressed, watch the national, international news, the local news. But it's just a crazy, crazy situation. And who's going to fix this? Do you trust your politicians to do it? Do you trust the powers that be? You've got to have faith that at some point somebody will do right by you, right? Because this could easily descend into chaos. And it should never be like that. It doesn't have to be like that. If the people in power, the people in positions of power throughout society do the right thing. So that enables us to live a normal, productive life, hopefully. If you like what I do here, keep on watching. I'll catch you again. Bye now.